Dr. Scott Gottlieb, now former FDA commissioner on the boards of Pfizer and Illumina, and a CNBC contributor. Doctor, earlier today, a former White House advisor on COVID called the Delta variant like COVID on steroids. What are your thoughts?
It's highly concerning. This variant looks to be about 60% more transmissible than B.1.1.7, which was that UK variant that we know is more contagious. It's doubling about every 10 to 14 days in terms of its prevalence here in the United States. It's about 10% of infections right now. It will become the dominant strain in the United States. Now, the question is it going to be 90% of 10,000 infections a day or 90% of 100,000 infections a day? I think as far as the summer is concerned, we're unlikely to see a big resurgence of infection, even with this new variant. But this is a significant risk to the fall. And the effects of it are likely to be very regional. We're likely to see a resurgence of infection from 617, from this Delta variant, in states that have low vaccination rates versus states where the vaccination rates are above 70 to 80%. They should be pretty well protected. There's some modeling out right now that shows that if you get to about 85% of eligible people vaccinated, which some states will approach as they head towards the fall, that should be pretty good protection against a resurgence of infection, even with this more transmissible strain.
Dr. Gottlieb, the White House announcing today they'll invest more than $3 billion to develop treatments for future viral threats, a sort of virus pill. How big of an impact could this make?
Well, look, it could be a real game changer if you have sort of a Tamiflu-like pill for coronavirus that you could take it when symptoms first come on, use it as an outpatient drug to prevent progression of symptoms and prevent progression of the disease. There's companies that are developing these drugs right now. Merck has one under development. Pfizer does, the company I'm on the board of. They feel optimistic about the prospects for developing such a drug. This isn't a hard virus to drug. And what I mean by that is the machinery that this virus uses to replicate is machinery that we've interrupted before with other medicines. So we should be able to develop an inhibitor of viral replication, a drug that can stop this virus from replicating and be used on an outpatient basis. Whether we can have that for the fall, perhaps there's a possibility that we could have such a drug for the fall. That would be a real game changer in how we approach this disease.
Dr. Gottlieb, I saw your tweet about a new and disturbing study that's out. It examines brain images before COVID and after COVID, and it looks at the potential effect on the nervous system. What can you tell us?
This is a well-done study that came out of the United Kingdom, and what it shows is they looked at people, they followed people longitudinally over there with basically imaging and serial blood tests, basically as part of a big biobank to look at different diseases and study them in different people. And so they had imaging done on a lot of people, and they looked at those imaging studies that they had banked and looked at people who had developed COVID and compared them to people who didn't develop COVID. And what they found is that there was a consistent destruction in cortical tissue, in actual brain tissue, in the patients who had COVID. And the diminishment in the amount of cortical tissue happened to be in regions of the brain that are close to the places that are responsible for smell. So it could possibly explain why a lot of people who have COVID have a loss of smell. But what it suggests is that the loss of smell, is just an effect of a more primary process that's underway, and that process is actually shrinking of cortical tissue. And if that's the case, if your brain tissue is actually being destroyed by the virus or impacted, that could suggest that there's going to be some long-term sequelae. You may be able to compensate for that, but you're never going to get back that function, that loss of structural tissue. So it does suggest that there's more concerning features of this virus. It's one study, but it's a very well-done study. And one mechanism that could potentially explain this is if there's microvascular damage happening. Basically, small blood vessels are being damaged by the virus, and that in turn is leading to damage to brain tissue.
In short, brain damage from COVID, it sounds like.
In short, the study suggests that there could be some long-term loss of brain tissue from COVID, and that would have some long-term consequences. Again, you could compensate for that over time, so the symptoms of that may go away, but you're never going to regain the tissue if, in fact, it's being destroyed as a result of the virus.
One to watch. Dr. Scott Gottlieb, as always, thanks so much. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.